Okay, so earlier in this unit, we talked about something called inductive reasoning, which is making conjectures based on observations and patterns. Today, we're going to talk about deductive reasoning. All right, so what is deductive reasoning? Deductive reasoning is the process of reasoning logically and drawing conclusions from given facts and statements. This is super important, especially in today's world. We're going to talk about a couple of laws, the law of detachment and the law of syllogism, that derive directly from deductive reasoning. Okay, the law of detachment. This says if our conditional statement, so remember a conditional statement is if P then Q, if that is true. So in other words, if this is true, and also the hypothesis part is also true. So you'll see we have another line. If that's also true, then we know that the conclusion will also then have to be true. So then the conclusion Q is true. You see these three dots in a triangle like that? That means the word therefore. It's a shortcut in geometry for therefore. Therefore Q then would be true. So let's take a look at what this looks like in an example. It says if Xavier saves $500, then he can buy a PlayStation 5. Xavier saves $500. So let's just analyze this. This is P, this is Q. So this is our P, then Q part. And then the second part should be the P. Is this the same as this? Yes. So that is my P. So then we can say that the Q has to be true. So therefore Q. So the Q is Xavier could buy then a PlayStation 5. So that should be our conclusion. Okay, this is called the law of detachment. Okay, and we're going to just see if you understand how this works. Okay, so I have a couple of examples here. I also have this symbolic representation in the corner to kind of just keep us familiar with what's going on. All right, use the law of detachment to give a valid conclusion. If it is not possible, write no valid conclusion. Okay, so maybe I'll switch colors here. Okay, if you are 18 years old, then you can register to vote. Okay, Zephy is not 18 years old. So this is our P then Q at the top up here, but this does not match this. It needs to match or at least say the same kind of thing. And in this case, it doesn't match. So we can't draw a valid conclusion from this. So that's what we're going to write. We're going to write no valid conclusion. Okay. So again, that's because this piece does not match this. Okay. Now, here's another example. If the sum of two angles is 90 degrees, that's our P, then they are complementary. Okay. So that's our if P then Q conditional statement. Measure angle A is 55 degrees and the measure of angle B is 35 degrees. Well, these two, it doesn't say exactly the same thing, but it is two angles that, these are two angles that add up to 90 degrees. If I add those together, I do get 90 degrees. So this is the sum of two angles. It is the same thing. Even though it's written different, it means the same thing. So this is a different way to say P. So then I could say my conclusion is then A and B are complementary, which is the Q part, right? That's this part. They are complementary. So this is called the law of detachment. All right. Now, the second one is called the law of syllogism. And this has two conditional statements. And so here's how it breaks down. It says if P goes to Q and Q goes to R, then P has to go to R. So if P goes to Q and then Q goes to R, then P has to go to R. That's what that's saying. So, but these two things need to be, this has to be true, this has to be true, then this is true. Okay, so let's let's look. Okay, so two statements, two given conditional statements, or if-then statements. If you fly from Minnesota to California, so this is our P, then you travel from the Central to the Pacific time zone. That's our Q. We're in the Central time zone, right? And in California in the Pacific time zone. Okay, and then it says the next thing that should be true is this and this should be that they should start, the next line should start with Q. So this should say the same thing as our conclusion before. It says if you travel from the Central to the Pacific time zone, right? That's the same as this part. So that does match. We're good. Then you gain 2 hours. And this should be a different statement. It is. So this is R. Okay. So what is my conclusion? My conclusion should say P to R. So P is this. Okay. So I should say if you fly from Minnesota to California, okay, then you gain 2 hours. Okay, so that should be my statement. So if you fly from Minnesota to California, again, this is P. Okay, then you gain 2 hours, and that should be your R. Remember, therefore, P goes to R. So this is called the law of syllogism. Okay, and that is our conclusion. This would be our answer. Okay. All right, let's just try this a couple of times and make sure that this makes sense. Okay. If Caleb goes to the Red Cow, so this is P, then he will order a burger, Q. And then if he orders a burger, this should match this. It does. So Q. Then he will get fries. That should be different. R. Okay, so those all seem to work. So then I should be able to say that the P part goes to this part. So if Caleb goes to the Red Cow, then he will get fries. That should be my conclusion. If Caleb goes to the Red Cow, P, then he will get fries. R. Okay, so I'm just following this map here in the corner. And it helps to label each part just to make sure that you're on the right track. So if it snows, P, then we won't have school tomorrow. That should be our Q. Okay? And then if it snows, Q. Then I will wear my boots. R. Okay, so then this should go to this. So my conclusion should be, if it snows, then I will wear my boots. Except there's a problem. This is not Q, is it? Right? That's what it's supposed to be, right? But this is actually P. That's P. So that doesn't match this right here. It's supposed to be Q. So they kind of tricked us a little bit there. You got to be careful with that. So this one we could say no valid conclusion. Because, again, this right here is our P, and it's supposed to be Q. So this and this should match. Okay, so that doesn't work. Okay, so let's just see if we're kind of on the right track. So this one, it says, determine whether the conclusion following the given statements is justified by the law of detachment or the law of syllogism. If neither, write invalid. Okay, so let's see, let's go to, if Anita drives over the speed limit, P, then she will get a ticket, Q. Anita drove over the speed limit, that's P. Then Anita got a ticket. This should be Q. That looks to be valid, and that is the law of detachment. You can kind of tell because this is in another if-then statement. But they match. So that's law of detachment. Okay, cool. All right, let's try this one. If you go to the water park, P, then you will need to bring sunscreen, Q. If you do not bring sunscreen, oh, wait a minute, that doesn't match this. It's close, but it has the word not in there. It's slightly off. So this isn't Q. It's supposed to be Q. It's not. So that won't work. So then you will get a sunburn. We'll get a sunburn. That's not. It's close, but it's not. So this would be no valid conclusion. Whoops. Or invalid. Okay. Hopefully that makes some sense now, and you kind of understand the two laws. Again, don't forget to write a conclusion for your notes, a summary, have an assignment on it, and you can put it in the bin when you're done. All right, see you later.